Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today what I'd like to do is I'd like to give you an overview of a series of role-playing games known as the Praxis series. Now Praxis is a series of games designed by Jim Pinto and published by Postworld Games. It came out of a very successful Kickstarter earlier this year, earlier in 2016, and there are 5 games in the series and they come either as PDFs or as books. I should just mention before I get started though that one of these games was unfortunately a Kickstarter exclusive, so if you didn't get in on the Kickstarter, it'll be very difficult for you to get your hands on that. But I will cover all 5 games in the series, just talk a little bit about what the series is all about and why I think it's a pretty exciting game to sort of get behind. But let's get started. So what is Praxis? Praxis is a series of games that is designed primarily to be played as GM-less games or story games, whatever term you prefer. So there are games where there's no real sort of winner or loser. It's not about sort of leveling up or grinding or your traditional sort of role-playing game stuff. It's about telling a great story with your friends. And Praxis does a lot of things that are different from a lot of other story or GM-less role-playing games that I think make it pretty exciting and definitely worth checking out. But before I talk about like the mechanics, I'll focus in on one book in detail and just kind of take you through what you would expect in a Praxis game. I'll just talk about the 5 games in the series and sort of give you a little taste about what they're all about so that you can pick which one that you want. Now, as I said, these games come as PDFs or books, and all you need to play is the one document, the book. Now, the rules for the games are very similar, so there'll be a lot of duplication between books, but each book itself is a game on its own. It's a standalone game that you can play and enjoy. So you don't need to buy, for example, like a player's handbook or a DMG or anything like that. Everything you need is in this little sort of, 94-page book. And like I said, the rules are the same from book to book, and each book is designed to be standalone, but the sort of examples of play and all of that sort of thing are written specifically for each of the 5 stories. So even though there is some duplication in the rules from book to book, it's still worthwhile reading because the walkthroughs and that sort of thing are interesting. But what are the 5 games? Okay, so the first game and kind of the flagship game in the series is King of Storms. Now, King of Storms is where the characters play these sort of godly beings. I'll read you a little bit of the blurb from the back of the book. 1,000 years ago, the gods and titans slew one another in a great battle for the heavens. In their destruction, their blood rained from the heavens, permeating the earth and drenching the soil. Centuries passed. From this blood arose powerful beings, capable of unearthly feats. Some were born of gods' bloods, noble and perfect. Others were born from Titan's blood, twisted and malevolent. A third was born an abomination of the two, half god, half titans, the bloodless Gorgons. But the storm is coming, the time of ascendancy is at hand. The kingdom can have but one ruler, the King of Storms. Which child of heaven shall take his or her place upon the throne, and who will be consumed by the storm? So this is a sort of grand, epic scale adventure where players play these sort of godlike characters battling for supremacy. Very, very interesting, very epic, pretty amazing. So that's King of Storms, that's the first one. The next one is Of the Flesh. Now, Of the Flesh is the sort of the zombie game entry in the series, but it's different in that the characters are playing the zombies and they're sentient. So in Of the Flesh, the characters are tormented undead, fighting to return to normal after an infection has ruined the world. So I'm not going to read the whole blurb on the back, but you're playing sentient zombies that are trying to get back to sort of real life and return to normality. So yeah, that's Of the Flesh, if you're interested in that. What you'll notice about these games is that they take sort of the traditional tropes and the traditional themes that you've come to sort of know and expect, and a lot of them just do like a little twist on them, just to sort of spice them up a little bit, make them a little bit interesting, a little bit different. Odin's Eye is the sort of the big sci-fi game in the series. So in Odin's Eye, the characters are search and rescue specialists aboard a galaxy-hopping spaceship. They're dedicated, highly trained, and often sent into impossibly hostile places. Their motto, "No star unturned," serves as a reminder to never give up, even when the mission could spell their doom. So this is your kind of epic space adventure. You play a team of engineers and scientists and astronauts going out into space on a search and rescue mission. Very, very exciting. Odin's Eye, that's the sort of the nice sci-fi one. This one over here, The Black Monk, is the 4th of the 4 main games in the series. And this is your sort of dark fantasy kind of book. In The Black Monk, the characters are people living in a desolate but vibrant world where time seems to have lost meaning, living for decades, perhaps longer, in isolation from others. The people of Elysia toil and work, only to be visited once a year by the Black Monk. So this is a sort of a very dark fantasy story. I mean, the art and everything kind of reflects that quite a lot. So yeah, this is if you're into fantasy and especially things like, it reminds me a little bit of the world of something like Dark Souls or Demon Souls. That's the Black Monk. And the last game, The Lambs, is the sort of the Kickstarter exclusive game. So as I said, unfortunately, this one will be difficult for you to get your hands on if you didn't back the Kickstarter. And this is definitely definitely the most controversial game in the series, and possibly one of the most controversial games I've ever played. In The Lambs, the characters are people who believe their God speaks to them through signs and portents. Everything around them is a message telling them to do his bidding, and each lamb has the power and hunger to make change. So in this game, you play kind of religious fanatics, religious zealots. It's very, very interesting, very controversial. But let's talk a little bit about the games and how they actually play. So as I said, the Praxis game series is designed to be played without a GM, without a game master. So what does that mean? Every player will have equal agency over the story, and each player will take turns directing or framing scenes that'll help tell the story and push the story further. Now, sometimes the scenes will be just one player on their own. Sometimes they'll have sort of other players around the table, or all the players around the table. And the scenes can be sometimes be flashbacks. They can be things that are happening in the present. But what is the game? How does the game actually work? Well, the first thing that you need to do is you need to build your character and create the world of the story. So even though you may think, well, this is one story, why would I play this game more than once? The way that we build up the world and the way that you design your characters in this game mean that every time you play will be slightly different, provided that you answer the questions differently and pick a few different options. So in King of Storms, for example, if you go through a character, you'll choose, like your world building questions are, who among you is the most brash, demanding, and stubborn, and how do you excuse this behavior to others? Where another world building question would be, why has your courage failed in this moment of crisis, and how will you restore it? So there's lots of different options in the character sheet, and you pick different ones each time you play, and that'll help to sort of tweak and modify the story slightly. But how does the game actually work? Well, first of all, let me talk a little bit about the book. The layout and the art in these books is very, very nice. It's clean, it's consistent, it's very easy to find what you're looking for. And like I said, the books are only 94 pages long, so you're not sort of hunting through indexes and tons of stuff, although there is a very, very useful index at the back of each book, but you're not hunting through indexes and tons and tons and tons of pages to find the rule that you want. But how does the game actually work? Well, there's a little flow chart at the beginning, or a little quick guide that I'll just talk about quickly, if I can find it. Should be over here. Yeah. So first you gather 4 to 6 friends, including yourself. Make characters by selecting roles, which is the person that you want to play. And there's a bunch of these in the back of the character, in the back of the book. Objectives, relationships, and so on. This should take about 20 to 30 minutes. So take your time exploring the world before you finish. So what's interesting about these games as well is that there's no prep required beforehand. You literally rock up with a copy of the book, sit around the table, and you guys go through the whole process together of creating the world, building your characters, creating your story. So that's great. Then you choose someone to narrate the opening vignette, followed by another player to narrate the opening ensemble. And now vignettes and ensembles are types of scenes that are explained in detail in the book. So how does the game actually work? Well, each player has got what are known as their milestones, which are your objectives that you want to accomplish. And each player has, I believe it's 4 of them. Let me just check. 5 of them. Each player has 5 milestones that they want to accomplish. So this character over here, the heir to the sun, their milestones are they want to build libraries, control mines, dedicate an act or monument, preserve a significant relic, or sully their hands. So in the game, you'll play and you'll go around the table framing scenes until one player has either marked off all their milestones, so they've achieved their milestones, or they've marked off 5 of their trepidations, which are things that happen when they fail at accomplishing a milestone. And the way that you test if you're going to fail or succeed at those sorts of things is there's this very simple dice rolling mechanism that's built into the game. So you need, in addition to the books, you'll need a deck of cards, which is used to sort of randomize the scene types and that sort of thing, and about 5 d6s should do you fine. So what's also nice about the book is each part of each sort of mechanical section that's explained is followed up with a nice walkthrough. So you're never having to try and guess how these rules apply in a situation or in a game. You can see everything has got a walkthrough or an example of play where you can see that mechanic sort of in action. So that's really, really exciting. So yeah, there's lots of different characters to choose for each of the stories, and you'll go through that character creation session together and build up the story and the world together. So because the number of different characters and the number of different world building questions, the permutations and the different combinations are kind of endless, and you'll never really have two games that are the same. So these games are very, very interesting and very, very exciting. I like GM-less games or story games. One thing I should say about Praxis, though, is that they are games that are designed for a more serious role player. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have fun, but it doesn't really reward. You're not going to have a super rewarding experience if you do that sort of gonzo, everyone kind of goes mad and tries to outdo everyone else and just mess up everyone else's day. These are games that are designed for people who want to get around and tell an amazing story, and they can definitely do that. So yeah, if that sounds like something that you're interested in, I know I've waffled and there's tons of stuff I haven't spoken about. There's drama points, there's lots of detail about the different types of scenes, the finales, epilogues, all of that stuff. And each of the games has also got optional rules which help you sort of like really build up and tell that epic story if it's something that you're interested in. What I also like about this is that unlike a lot of other GM-less role-playing games, things like achieving a milestone in this has a mechanical advantage. So you'll get some drama points, and you can use those drama points to add dice to a dice pool. So it's still got, at its heart, it's scene framing and storytelling, but it does have some gaming mechanics that people who like a more traditional role-playing game will be able to get behind. And that's one of the design objectives of these games, I think, was to create GM-less story games that were easy to play for people who were used to playing traditional role-playing games. But I've waffled on enough, so if that's something that you're interested in, Praxis series of role-playing games available on Drive-Thru RPG from Post World Games, designed by Jim Pinto. Thanks for watching, take care, bye-bye.